Well, we finally have some progress being made on the big budget reboot of Blade for Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige. They are now actively looking for people to work on this movie, which is a step ahead of from where we were, which is nothing happened, but we had a lead actor. Well, it's one way to
Yeah.
handle it, I guess. I mean, I've let it pretty much be known on anytime we talk about Blade, one of my absolute favorite characters of all time. In my top 5 favorite comic book movies ever is Blade 2. So this is right up like what I want from Marvel. And the fact that they're finally working on it is great. And it was also mentioned in, I want to say it was Hollywood Reporter, maybe it wasn't. They always get mixed up if it's been a couple days. But they stated that it looks like October 8th of next year was going to be Blade. That was their Blade date. And then due to
Makes
everything happening, it got bumped back. So it looks like we were right on that being Blade when they originally released those dates, which kind of makes sense. Now it interests me, like, do they just bump it back a year? Are we getting this in October 2022 probably? Because there's still a date for that?
That's what I do. If they're dead set on the October date, then yeah, you just bump it back a whole year.
Mm-hmm. Good. I mean, it makes sense.
Especially how everything else is being moved around and shuffled. It's like, no, we want this in Spooky Month. It stays Spooky Month. You can't really move that about as much.
Right. Where do you think they possibly go with the movie? Like, what do you think the hook is going to be? Like, what do they do?
I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
suppose depending when Moon Knight comes out, if Moon Knight's going to be before, then that's an easy crossover. As to for a draw, I mean, I'm not sure.
I mean, I feel like regardless of what happens with the movie, right? The character is first showing up in Moon Knight. That's my feeling. Like, post-credit or something. I feel like that's going to happen.
Yeah. I can see an episode where he's there. Because why would you cast him this far out? It's such a weird thing to do.
And I get you're like, okay, we got Mahershala on this. Well, let's cast him. Let's lock him in because we don't want him to go anywhere. But there's also got to be an alternative plan, which to me screams Moon Knight. Like that just the characters
So
go hand in hand.
it's such an easy in. It's so easy. Like, just do it. Like, come on now. No. It would be like if they had the X-Men. It's like, we just put Logan in Captain America.
Yeah, it's one of those things where people keep talking about it. Like, I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm like, I think you would kind of have to have it happen. Like, I don't know. There's too much that doesn't work with it, which obviously we'll talk about Moon Knight in a little bit. The thing with me is, like, I want to know how much do you go into the full vampire, occult, underground, like, story.
Well, they have to do something different with vampires, didn't they?
Totally.
They have to do something different because you got to make them interesting to the general public again.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to kind of go like, no, vampires exist in these things too. No, it's not just everywhere else. So you have to do something like, is that something different? Going very heavily European, like, but is that too close to Underworld? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they could also include, because I know he's primarily a vampire hunter, but he also kills monsters as well. If the money's
it's
good
true.
for it.
It's true. I mean, yeah, you could do something like a band thing in there.
I have a stupid idea that I think Marvel Studios could pull off, and it's a really dumb idea. You know how, like, you always have that horror sequel, right? Where they're like, it's a soft reboot, and what we're gonna do is we pan over to a TV, and they're watching the other films. We're so smart. Like, after Wes Craven started that with, like, the Scream movies, it became, like, such a trope. I wouldn't mind if Blade tackled that same thing, but here's the thing. They play it up that vampires have been around the entire time, they're dwindling in numbers, but they infiltrated high locations like Hollywood, and they produced all these vampire things to subvert what vampires actually are. So they acknowledge vampire lore, And it's not the type of zombie stupidity where people are like, what are these things? Like, zombies never existed in their universe. Like, they're just like, wait, you don't sparkle? He's like, no, that's what Hollywood made you think we do. Vampires are real, trust me. Like, I wouldn't mind that type of approach with Blade. Like, play it off as Hollywood covered it up. Like, I think there'd be something really funny and interesting there to explore, like, this whole underground, hidden, worldwide conspiracy, vampires, and all this dark stuff. Like, because, let's be real, it's comic books. It's not out of the realm of possibility, so why not?
No, not at all.
But
no, because I like Blade. I don't hate the character or anything. He's not. The concept isn't something I usually gravitate towards because it's vampires, and I got bored of those like 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie's got a bit of an uphill climb for me, just purely based on that front. So,
I mean, you're not the only one.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to suggest them not just going for vampires, but just going for any type of
making a general monster hunter. But then you're kind of taking away Elsa Bloodstone's thing, and let's be honest, Elsa Bloodstone's coming at some point.
Oh yeah.
I know, but I'm just saying because that's what. Well, currently Blade is more geared towards now, not just vampires primarily, but also other hostile monsters.
And I mean, it would kind of make sense if for Midnight Suns, they all sort of team up versus a big thing from everybody's, like, rogues gallery, right? Like,
yeah, that's another question. Do you do Dracula right off the bat?
I hope not. I really hope not.
Or do you save Dracula for, like... Do you make like Dracula like a mini Thanos?
Yeah, so definitely.
You just tease him in different like aspects of these, like the supernatural world that they're clearly setting up.
Literally, he's like the man in the shadows. They thought Dracula died hundreds of years ago, but he's slowly coming back.
Instead of Dracula, they could go with Blackout.
Who?
Blackout, one of Blade's enemies. He is a man that's been augmented with superhuman strength, claws, and fangs, and he has the ability to cloak himself and his surroundings in darkness.
I ask again, who?
Well, I mean, he could work if we want to go more mainstreamish. Maybe you reveal that it's like Blackheart or Mephisto, and you sort of bring in Ghost Rider along with them.
Because like the only other villain besides Dracula and Lilith is Morbius.
Jared Leto's coming, boys.
No, please.
Yeah, it's the only like well-known one.
I mean, well,
like, vampires are already a cult. We don't need an actual actor in a cult to be.
But we don't actually still know that weird connection that they're doing to Marvel Studios. So like,
I think at this point, I'm going to assume, and I'm never going to take it any other way, that's a different version of Toomes in the multiverse.
All right.
If we're getting Jamie Foxx Electro, it's going to be a different one. That's good. That's a different Toon.
The only other one I can see possibly is Zarius. He's the son of Dracula.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the son. Yeah, you could do that first off and set him up. That's one way of doing it.
You could. I mean, why not? But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about the darker side of Marvel soon. But yeah, that is the Blade topic at hand. Which
before we move on though, who would you want to write? Because they're looking for the writer and director, obviously. Who would you want to do this?
I mean, my answer.
I have no idea.
My answer is very obvious. But I don't want him writing or directing. I want him to be a consultant, and I want Guillermo del Toro to kind of help them with the darker side of things.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
Yeah, it was going to be an obvious one, but honestly, I don't know because I want them to hire somebody I don't understand or have ever heard of that I think will deliver. Which again, that's a Moon Knight connection there. We'll talk about soon because
I was going to say exactly what they've done for Moon Knight.
Right, but yeah, I have no preconceived notion. I just want Blade back, and it's happening, so I'm happy.
Fair enough.